Hall taking you up to Mariners pregame at 4:30. Game 4 of the American League Championship Series coming your way. Luis Castillo on the hill facing off against Max Scherzer in a crucial, huge game for this Seattle Mariner team. And here to join us and make us all feel better about last night. You know him, you love him, you see him all over MLB TV, MLB Network. He does a fantastic job with us each and every week. Jon Morosi is here. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Bob. I got to tell you this, and Ryan, great to be with you. Mike, thanks for the invitation to be here. I walked to the ballpark today from our hotel downtown. So a nice little 35-minute walk. Loved it. I felt like I was reacquainting myself with this city that I love so much, that I lived in a long time ago, but was able to really kind of feel the vibe in the city today. And it just to be able to cover a game like this in Seattle. I know that last night's game did not go the Mariners' way, but everybody here, Victory Hall, who's enjoying this amazing atmosphere, appreciate where we are, appreciate what we're doing. Postseason baseball, ALCS in Seattle. A lot of gratitude today.
JP, how does it compare? You do this every year. How does it compare to other cities you go to when you're talking about, you mentioned walking down the street, or just the buzz around the ballpark, in and outside of the ballpark, comparing to other cities?
There has never been a place that I have covered that I can think back on now. Boston 2004 comes to mind because of the history and how excited they were. Chicago 2016, and Seattle of now is right in that conversation. And here's the reason, is because the people that are here wearing the Mariner gear, all of us, none of us have ever seen a Seattle Mariner team in the World Series. And there's that quality of baseball when you are yearning and striving to see something that's never happened before. It's never happened before. Yeah. And I think to the fans here, you feel that. There's this anticipation that, with all due respect, in Boston now, they've won some championships in the last couple of decades. It's not going to feel that same way. And right now, it has that immediacy and the passion and the wanting and the striving to do something that we've never seen. Yeah. So I think that for that reason, Ryan, in this great city, the weather is perfect. This is perfect postseason weather. And so I think for all the time and place and the people and the noise in there, I'm telling you, third inning yesterday, I know it did not go the Mariners' way, but I looked down from my seat in the press box, and everyone, all of you, were standing up. And that just, to me, third inning of Game 3, and how much the city is invested. I'll say that I've not experienced, probably since the Cubs in 2016, a fan base as invested in every pitch as this fan base is right now.
We're not used to being here, and we know what it means.
That's right.
I mean, you're 2 games away from a place this organization has never been.
Right.
The only organization to never make it to a World Series. And we're right there. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So every pitch, every moment feels do or die. And in this game, I don't think we're overstating it. Ryan and I were just talking about this in the last segment. How huge is this game? When you're talking about the difference of coming into Game 5, 3-1 or 2-2, because you don't want to go back to Toronto.
Right.
You're 2 games away. You want to have them in a position where they got to sweep 3 games in a row versus you winning 1 more.
One of the biggest games in franchise history today. We're hours away from it. That's not hyperbole to say it. It's one of the most important games the Seattle Mariners have ever played, is this one. And it's because of exactly what you're describing. That if it's 2-2, all of a sudden the home field advantage goes back to Toronto. They know they're playing at least 1 more home game. And that, I think, changes everything about this game and this series. Now, I think one of the other big topics today that I know is relevant to what we're discussing here is the role of Bryan Woo and how he now factors in. Now that we know Bryce Miller is going to start Game 5, which, by the way, in my view, is the right decision. Miller, he is the known. As much as you can know something in the context of a playoff series, you saw Miller pitch very well against this team already once in this series. Now you have a chance, different atmosphere, different environment. It's now on the road and not the same look. It's not the same ballpark. I think it's a smart decision by the Mariners to have Miller start. And Woo, I love that he's on the roster. You can deploy him in whatever way he's going to make the biggest difference. That might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be later. But because of the way this has played out, as much as yesterday, Bob, to your point, was a tough outcome, it actually wasn't the worst kind of a postseason loss. The worst kind of a postseason loss is the postseason loss in which you use all of your A relievers and still lose.
Point, yeah.
They did not use their A relievers. So the Seattle Pen right now, again, you didn't want to have that be the outcome yesterday. But as a consequence, your highest leverage relievers had the day off, plus you have Wu. So I think if George Kirby was pitching that way in an elimination game, he would have been out maybe in the third inning.
Yeah.
So you manage that game fundamentally differently than you manage game 4 differently than you did in game 3, because now it's a little more of an urgent situation. Plus your best assets in the bullpen, Ryan, are rested and ready to go, and that includes Brian Wu.
Yeah, that's a great point too. The fact that, because people ask me, oh man, was that the worst way to lose? Well, kind of, but you didn't burn, like you said. You didn't go with Vargas where he had to get 5 outs, and all of a Munoz, and has to get 5 outs, cover that, get up, get down, sit down, and then back up again. I want to ask you this, JP, because we get so hyper-focused on the Seattle Mariners for good reason, obviously. Here we are covering this team. But both these teams, and I didn't say that, the Mariners, for example, are rolling out into game 3 last night thinking, we got this made, we're all good, we're going to take the foot off the gas. But you've been in both clubhouses, you've been around the players, yesterday and today. First of all, starting with the Mariners, we'll get to the Blue Jays in a second, but the Mariners, do you feel like there was any kind of different, change in the mindset going into game 3 after winning those 2 games in Toronto, where they felt like they were in the driver's seat and they could kind of take a step back? There's a little bit less sense of urgency. And on the flip side with the Blue Jays, how resilient they were to come out and did what they did last night?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think the Mariners got overconfident at all. They scored first. They had a 2-0 lead. And then Kirby just missed with his fastball basically for a whole inning. And when you do that against a good team, you're going to get beat. I mean, there's really that game, I don't think had anything to do with a lack of focus or concentration or taking anything lightly. That had everything to do with the way that George Kirby located his fastball for basically 2 innings, and especially the third. That's it. Yeah. There was nothing more profound to be read into this. I do think that the Jays now have a higher level of confidence. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. needed a game like that. There's a little bit of pressure building on him, even though, to be fair, in game 1, Vladdy's first 2 outs were both above 100 miles an hour. Okay, so he was due for some better luck, and he had some better luck yesterday. And Alejandro Kirk got going, and now Kirk is going to bat higher in the lineup. They dropped Barger down. They adjusted some things, I think, based on what they expect from the matchup against Castillo. So I look at yesterday as not a case of the Mariners in any way taking the foot off the accelerator, nor do I look at it as the Jays rallying or in some way, shape, or form going outside of themselves to desperately climb back in the series. If anything, the Jays did the thing that baseball players are most attuned to doing, which is they turn the page and they put together some better at-bats and had a better result. And it wasn't a matter of, I think if anything, they adopted almost a regular season mentality, which was you set everything else aside. If you're a member of the Toronto Blue Jays club arriving here for game 3, you said to yourself, what? We got to win a 3-game series in this ballpark. We got to win a 3-game series. In some order, win a 3-game series. If we win a 3-game series, we get to play baseball back in Toronto. And they're now 1 win away from doing that. And that's that. I think what good teams, Ryan and Bob, for me, in the postseason, they don't take an amplified postseason-like approach. They're already good, detail-oriented players who are able to just take that same approach into October and not allow the anxiety of the moment to upset their equilibrium. And I think, to be fair, Toronto, they got beat by the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Some of their fans were panicked. They came back and won a bullpen game to clinch the series.
Yeah, how about that?
The Mariners, they had a chance to clinch in Detroit. That game all of a sudden turned sideways on them. All the questions about, did Dan Wilson mismanage the bullpen, et cetera, they come back 2 days later and win an epic Game 5 here. So we have seen both of these teams turn the page well. To win the World Series, you have to be able to turn the page well, and I think we have seen 2 really good teams do similar things in that regard this month.
Yeah, and to their credit, I was watching their post-game interviews after Game 2, talking about the Blue Jays, and John Schneider's up there, and there's no panic. I mean, they weren't happy by any stretch, but it was just very matter-of-fact, like, no, look, it's a good team over there. We're going to roll them back out. We're going to face them out there. We're looking forward to it. I mean, and what made me feel better is I saw that in the Mariners clubhouse last night when I was in there. They weren't happy. It wasn't celebratory by any stretch, but it was just very matter-of-fact, like, yeah, that game sucked. It's baseball. It happens. We're going to go back. There's a reason that team's over there. They're a good team, and we're going to go out there and run it back tomorrow.
Well, and think about the Blue Jays, the makeup of their club for a second. You've got a World Series MVP in George Springer. Max Scherzer, 2 World Series rings. Tonight for Max, his 26th career postseason start. He has basically an entire season of high-intensity playoff starts in his career. I don't know how Max is going to pitch. He's obviously dealt with injuries and inconsistency this year. I don't know how he's going to pitch, but he's not going to be intimidated. That I can promise you. And I think it's important to take a step back here. You know, we're watching history here. Tonight, theoretically, possibly, could be the final postseason start of Max's career. Could be. He's going to the Hall of Fame. We know that. The last time he started a game in the postseason, it was the World Series in 2023. His team won it. Okay, the first time he started a postseason game, I looked up the roster today in the lineup. He faced the New York Yankees, Game 2 Division Series in 2011. The first hitter he faced in the postseason, Derek Jeter. Then he faced Curtis Granderson, Robinson Cano, Alex Rodriguez, Mark Teixeira. It's a different generation of player. That's how long Max has been doing this. So he's going to tie in the wild card era Clemens, Glavine, and Maddox for the 26th start, which is tied for 4th in that era, behind only Pettit, Kershaw, and Verlander. These are the greats of the realm that we're seeing, okay? So I don't know how Max is going to pitch.
Hopefully
I don't know.
Poorly.
Pardon me?
Hopefully poorly.
Well, I could care less about any history right now. I want to see him get absolutely smacked around. Now, speaking of that, JP, now, you know, based off what he did at the end of the season, he was left off the roster in the last round. He was throwing sim games to, matter of fact, Sean Casey's son.
Sure. Yes, yes.
A bunch of, you know, a lot of minor leaguers up in Toronto. He didn't even go to New York with the team. He was up there throwing. What can the Mariners expect from Max Scherzer beyond the, obviously, you know, some of the accolades and some of the 26th game, 500th career game and everything else? But from a scouting report point of view, what can the Mariners and the fans expect what they're up against?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan, because I think we're going to see him. He's going to rely much more, if this is the first time you've seen Max pitch this season, he's going to rely much more on movement than velocity. If you think about what you saw classically from Max, the high riding fastballs, he still, I think, has enough in the tank to where he might be able to snap off some really, really great breaking pitches. But I'll say this, Ryan, he is not going to come in here and pace himself to go 7 or 8 innings. This is probably a 5, maybe 6 inning start if things go great for him. I think he's going to empty the tank. And if he goes 4 innings, but it's 4 innings and 1 run, that's a good outcome. Because remember, similarly, when you look at Toronto's bullpen yesterday, because the score was so lopsided, they didn't have to go to their big guys. So there's a little more flexibility there for them. They have Chris Bassett, who was Max's longtime teammate going back to the Mets. That certainly could factor into this game as a bridge. They also have Eric Lauer they could bring in the middle of the game, maybe depending if they want to go right-left. But I think Max's velo, look for it to be more low 90s. Look for him to really live more on the corners. Cutter, slider, that type of approach. I think it's a different Max than what we saw from him at his peak in Detroit and Washington.
Mariners have a bit of a different lineup going tonight. You were over there earlier, right? So did you hear anything about, we saw Robles make that catch in right field last night, and he kind of saw moving around that shoulder, and I don't know if anything happened because he's not in the lineup tonight. They've got Canzone in right field. Victor's not in the lineup. He hasn't been hitting, but he's a decidedly better defensive player than Canzone is. So I'm wondering, and then we see Leo Rivas in the lineup hitting ninth, which I kind of like. What do you know? What is your feeling about that?
I do think there might be some relationship to the Robles situation and then the decision today. Let's put it this way. If this was a regular season game, I think you would see exactly what's happened today, which is he would definitely need some time off after a collision like that, considering how eerily similar that play was to the one in San Francisco that resulted in the longer-term injury that he had this season. I also think that it makes sense you get a little more lefty bats in the lineup, right? When you consider that by having Canzone play right, what Leo's able to do. And then I think you get Polanco maybe off his feet a little bit. You get a little more defense at second base. So while maybe you're sacrificing a little outfield defense, you're upgrading probably your infield defense in terms of range with Rivas. I think overall it's the right decision, and especially when you consider the struggles that Robles has had offensively. I think probably – I don't think this is strictly injury related. I think it is injury plus performance, and also in the best interest maybe for Polanco too, for the long scope of things, maybe getting a little more athleticism on the field. And I think that Rivas can give you a different kind of at bat. Rivas plays a little more small ball contact oriented than Robles does right now, and I think it's a different type of at bat. How many times have we talked about this team where sometimes when they get a little bit stale offensively, the at-bats look a little bit too similar one to the next.
Yeah, for sure.
And Rivas gives you a different at-bat.
Hey, one second, right? I'm curious for last night, when you got a game that's out of hand the way it was, and I know Cal hit a home run late in the game, which is great. Would you have liked to have seen Dan, like, all right, Harry or Garver, get back there. Let's get Cal off his feet from squatting, give him a break, maybe throw, somebody else out there. Just get some of the reserves, get Mastroboni out there, just to get some of the starters off their feet for couple of innings when it looked like, all right, you're not going to come back from 9 runs down.
I'm sure it was talked about. I'm sure it was referenced in the dugout. I don't know that Dan is, and I certainly don't want to speculate on it at all, but I would guess that Dan, being a catcher himself, would have checked in with Cal 6th, 7th inning and said, listen, do you want to get off your feet a little bit here?
Yeah.
I think Cal loves being behind the plate for every inning that he possibly can catch.
There's no question
and
there.
So but I would imagine that, Bob, for me, would have been a conversation in the dugout, manager to catcher, do you want a breather here? And if he was feeling like he needed one, I'm sure he would have gotten it. But I think at this moment in time, clearly Cal felt good to finish the game. I also thought, very importantly, was that Naylor didn't exit super early either. Because I thought, he winced a little bit that play in game 2. A little worried about him. He had to stretch, that play
catch.
In the first, and in the first inning even, he had to stretch. He had to make another catch high, too. I was a little worried about him, but I think the fact that he was in there, he was taking ground balls today before the game, which I didn't see him take yesterday. So I think that Naylor, for me, seems to be feeling better today than he was yesterday, just based on his level of pregame activity. That, I think, is a massively important sign because I think Naylor is rapidly approaching. I mean, Cal is one of one, but outside of the Cal, Julio, and now Polanco tier, I think Naylor is as important to this team as almost anybody else.
For sure. Yeah, real quick, we talked about Brian Wu, and I think I was just thinking about this when you talk about Max Scherzer being, whatever is significant. Pitch count-wise, I mean, there's no way. It's been nearly a month.
Correct.
Right. So do we have any idea if they talked about in regards to pitch count and how long he could even go if he was getting in the game?
Ryan, it's a great question. I would say that he's probably in the 30 pitch range because, again, that was what he did during the simulated game in Toronto. And that's why the decision with Miller, I'm not saying that it was telegraphed, but it doesn't surprise me because the last time we saw Wu throw was in a sim setting, and it was like 2 innings.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, he wasn't trying to go 5.
Yeah.
And so if you want to have a classic start to begin Game 5, Miller's your guy.
Absolutely.
And then hold Wu back for the highest impact moment in the game in the series that you can possibly come up with, and then put him in the game right then. That I think is. And remember, this is a roster spot the Mariners didn't have last time. And I'll also say this: I think Hancock, the way he's looked so far, I think he's not a leverage guy, but he's become someone that you trust in a way that maybe he wasn't when the series started, because I thought he pitched pretty well in Toronto.
Yeah.
To where now that you've seen a little proof of concept now with Hancock, I feel pretty good about him. He's not ahead of Wu, but if you get an extra inning situation, and if this game goes 12, maybe the 12th inning is an Emerson Hancock inning.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they use all those guys. Really, the bullpen you feel really good about, for me, outside of 2 names. And we saw them both last night.
Yeah.
Caleb Ferguson and Luke Jackson. I don't want to see them unless
and
that's all that's left.
They pitched last night for that reason.
Right.
And I think that was the idea. You pitch them in game 3, you give, and again, you might have an even better effectiveness for Brash, for Munoz, for Spire, for Bizzardo tonight because they've had a little extra rest. So again, yesterday was not ideal. We realize that. But the manner in which they lost allowed them to rest the bullpen, which is what it's about. It's about winning the series, not winning game 3. And the Mariners still, as we speak today, have a very good chance to win this series.
Yeah. Quickly, do you think there's any we talked about whether Cal should have been in or out of the game, and he did hit that home run late. We saw Randy hit the home run late. Do you think, and Gino came up with a base hit finally. Do you think there's any, I was asking Ryan this earlier, just for those individually, just looking at it go, finally, something positive.
Yes, 100%.
Finally, I mean, because we've been waiting for both those guys to do something.
Yes.
And it was in a blowout, didn't win, but does that maybe ease the stress a bit?
Yes, and especially for a Rosarena. He's a catalyst for this team, should be a catalyst for this team. And really, this postseason, he's been pretty quiet throughout.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for the Randy Rosarena of 2020 to come back, and that's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think he's due to sort of reinstate and re-announce himself to be a great postseason player, and I would say no time like Game 4 for that to happen.